change that so it doesn't look weird. Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the week's events in Geek for Friday night, December 6th, 2019. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drak. I hope everybody's had an awesome first week in December and have not been totally bummed because, well, around here, we had nothing but snowstorms all weekend, and so getting to work and to school and all of those other things was rather cumbersome. I hope you guys didn't have necessarily that problem, and I hope everybody is all doing well. And let me go ahead and introduce my panel of fellow geeks, fellow YouTubers, fellow awesome content creators, and if you guys aren't following them, what the heck is wrong with you? You should be, damn it! I've been telling you all year! Seriously, I've been telling you all year. So let's go ahead and start things off with Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, of From the Shelf, Rhapsody in Cinema, Monster Clash, Martial March, whatever he decides to make, it is movie magic instantly. Stephen Romney, how you doing tonight?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's movie magic, sometimes it's just a very, very elaborate car crash, so... but aside from that, it's been pretty good. During the times that we were off, it allowed me ample time to get used to the new job. The hours are a bit weird, but it's not gelling a lot more with this job than the one where I was currently at. For the purpose of security, though, I can't actually say where I work because, well, it is a job that crazy people tend to try things that are just not good ideas, so safety first.
Yeah, and before people jumped at my throat on that, like, yes, we acknowledge Alex's and I think even Brinton's job have been stated. That's their call. So if he says that, you have to take it up with him. I'm not going to bring it up to you guys. And also,
it's not even like a personal thing. This is like company policy. I gotta I can only say so much.
And if you expect me to say it, well, tough cookies. I'm sorry. And then also joining us is the Shadow Blazer himself, Alex Short, who is coming out of the shadows of Christmas time and the 12 days of anime to allow us his presence to talk about the week's events in Geek. Alex, how you doing?
I guess I'm alright. I did some very much needed cleaning up today, so got a little something done. At least I wasn't a total lazy bump on a log for a change.
Hey, I'll take whatever I can get, right? Okay, and then we have a few bits and pieces of news to be able to go over, but for tonight, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys we have not one, we have two top stories. The reason I say that we have two is because these both were the entire week. Like, everybody was talking about it, either giving their opinions, or we would find additional information, things like that. So I have no problem saying that there are two top stories tonight, and the first one, well, I think the only thing we can say before we get into this stuff is somebody done goofed. I'm not sure who. I don't even think this article tells us who. I can tell you it's between Sony and Capcom, but basically, for all those who have been waiting to hear about the Resident Evil 3 remake, well, you're not waiting anymore, because it's been leaked, accidentally, on the PSN. Yep, somebody's getting fired.
Yeah, or either that, or it could be a staged leak where they basically decided, oh, we're going to make it look like a leak, and then basically play dumb, saying, oh no, it leaked. I guess we have to explain that we're making this highly anticipated game. Oh no.
Well, and the other thing too, and a few videos out there on YouTube that I watched forgot this little tidbit, but Capcom's been teasing the Resident Evil 3 remake pretty much since earlier this year, when we had like accidental pictures of Nemesis out in the hallway, or I think somebody even said there was a Nemesis one in the bathroom, and yeah, they've been teasing it all year. We knew it was coming, especially those of us who had played the Resident Evil 2 remake, and were very horrified at the way that one Mr. X works in it.
I still have nightmares. I mean,
you and me both, brother.
All I have to do is hear those footsteps. I mean, I remember when the trailers first showing the gameplay of Mr. X came out, gave me nightmares. Mr. X and Jack Baker, those are the two Resident Evil things that legit gave me nightmares.
And Jack Baker for good reason as well. No, actually, I'll tell this story because I don't think I've told this yet. we hadn't. So when we played through the first time, we hadn't discovered Mr. X yet. But for those who have come across him, there's a music that will start to go into both the controller as well as from the TV that is supposed to warn you that X is in the area and he's seen you. So at that point, we didn't know he was there because we hadn't come across him yet. And all of a sudden, we're listening to this weird music that's starting to happen. Like, what the heck is this? And it's getting louder. What the hell? And literally, he flips us around and punches us. And my reaction is... And Andrea can confirm this.
Yeah, this is one of those times where you don't want X to give it to you.
No, X gonna give it to you, though. So, I mean... And the reason that we bring up Mr. X is because we looked at those mechanics and went, holy crap, how is Nemesis going to work in this?
Pretty much the same,
remakes?
except he has a freaking rocket launcher.
Well, yeah, not only that, but, like, I think we actually did a count on this. Technically, he has about 4 different ways he can insta-kill you. Some of them, I think 1 or 2 of them are event-prone, but he has a lot of ways to insta-kill you, and... I mean, just think of the mechanics that X did. Now, pump them up to 11, and consider the fact that now Raccoon City is very active in the Resident Evil 2 remake. And this gets really scary.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to take this apart piece by piece. Really quick, just give your opinions on the announcement of the 3 remake. Like, is it a surprise to any of us? I will tell you right here and now, the second I saw Mr. X in the RE2 remake, I went, no, they're doing a 3 remake because this is way too easy a thing to not tweak, to not have an excuse to tweak Nemesis.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this, I mean, if they had reservations, the sheer sales numbers and positive glowing praise that the Resident Evil 2 remake got, pretty much all but convinced the people behind the remake that, hey, this is definitely something to do, especially considering that there isn't as much work you'd have to do to create the 3 remake. I mean,
no.
They're already using the RE engine. You can reuse some of the assets from the RE2 remake since it is, for lack of a better term, a side story to Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, even though it has the 3 in it, it's actually like, it's in a weird way, it's based in different parts of Raccoon City. So at that point, while your character, Jill Valentine, in Nemesis is trying to get out, you also have the events of 2 going on.
Yep, and the whole reason it actually has the 3, that the original had the 3, was because 3 was meant to just be an action game spin-off of the main series while they were working on Code Veronica, or at least a prototype that would eventually become Code Veronica, but because Sony had a deal saying, hey, you need to give us a main number title on the PlayStation,
yep,
they had to literally switch it where the game they were working on that was meant to be the new sequel became Code Veronica, and then the action-heavy spin-off worked on by a completely new staff that had never worked on Resident Evil 4.
And a small staff.
So, yeah, it was a small staff that were just like, oh, this was just meant to be a fun, action-heavy spin-off, and now it's suddenly a mainline sequel? Mikami, help!
Yeah, not only that, what I found also very funny is, just from little tidbits I've been able to get here and there, basically what happened was, by the time the RE2 remake was about 80% done, they took a little chunk of their team and said, and basically told, like, the rumor is they told them, Nemesis, make it with what we have. And this small team is the one, because I guess the original idea, at least teased by some people or some internal sources at Capcom, is that 3 was supposed to be DLC for 2, because they literally looked at it and went, oh, I mean, this game is inherently smaller than 2, we could probably just do it that way. And no, especially considering the level of treatment that these remakes have gotten. The 1 remake is substantially bigger than the original, and 2 is far bigger than the original 2. So at that point, like, considering this to be DLC, yeah, no, it had to be its own game.
Well, yeah, especially given the way that they kind of fleshed things out for the Resident Evil 2 remake, I could definitely see them thinking, okay, 3 started out with less resources, let's make the game that we would have made if we had full time to develop it as a game, instead of as a haphazard spin-off.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what Capcom's thinking, like, okay, let's take this template, but then fully flesh out, fully develop it, and reconcile some of the issues that we had when we made it the first time, so that way it can fit more cohesively with the rest of the canon.
Exactly. So at that point, Alex, just kind of and this section of it, what was your thought on Resident Evil 3 getting a remake? Were you surprised by that? Were you not shocked at all? What was your take?
Not shocked at all. It's been pretty much teased and hinted at with the 2 remake, and it's been demanded by people since the 2 remake. So
Yeah,
I
that
think
trilogy,
Capcom,
like,
and given
people
how
just love it.
successful the 2 remake was, there's no way Capcom wasn't going to remake 3.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. They had to do it. I mean, here, like I was just barely saying, like that PlayStation trilogy is beloved by Resident Evil fans because they've all played it at least once. The remakes are great and all. I love the remakes, but I will admit that I've got a sense of nostalgia as a Resident Evil fan with those original 3 games, and going through them myself.
Yeah. Plus, to add to that, one of the things they did when they remade the first game was address some of the plot inconsistencies that had come up with subsequent games. It was a way of kind of resetting things and thinking, okay, we had these elements come up in 4, let's tweak a few things here so that way they can make sense.
Yeah.
But then it was also a case of, oh, well, we introduced these elements in Resident Evil 0. They conflict with the original story of 1. Let's tweak that. And here I see it as being more the same of, okay, well, we introduced these elements in the remake and in the remake of 2. Let's remake 3 so that way we can have a nice, cohesive canon version of the Raccoon City incident that we can then say, okay, this is now the canon iteration.
Exactly. I agree with that because the problem is that while I do love the original trilogy, it is filled with a lot of plot holes and really bad dialogue and all that stuff. And so now when they're making these serious takes on them, I have a love for them as well because they actually are trying to tell a cohesive story. And at that and trying to make everything work. One of the things I love about Resident Evil 0 is that it's kind of also put into that canonicity as Resident Evil 5 refers back to it, and also it maintains the continuity of the first game, at least a little bit, to make sure that the remake still makes sense. So at that point, I really like what they're doing, but let's get into the next portion of this, because I already know a few listeners want to know our opinions on the imagery that was already put up. And I'm just going to try and put these up on screen for you guys to check out. But we basically got 2 cover arts, one for a Z version, which I can only imagine is going to be some kind of like collector's edition with additional stuff, and then also just the base version. But I will tell you one thing that is instantly improved over Resident Evil 3. Anybody who played the original game knows that Jill Valentine's outfit did not make sense. And in this one, she actually has an outfit that makes bloody sense. For all those who don't know what I'm talking about, let me see if I can track down an image. But me and my best friend used to make this joke when we played through Resident Evil 3. She looks like a Walmart hooker. I'm not even kidding. She does. And I'm going to put up the art right now for the original Jill Valentine in Resident Evil 3. It's not pretty, guys. So I'll see if I can bring this up right now. Okay, application window. Let's do this. That is the original art for Jill Valentine returning from Resident Evil 1 into Resident Evil 3. Why? Even the actress who played her in Resident Evil Apocalypse looked at the directors and went, why am I in this outfit if this is a zombie apocalypse?
Yeah. I mean, I can understand from a design standpoint for where you're trying to create something that is both visually iconic but also easy to model and doesn't have a lot of moving parts. So for the time, I kind of understand. But even then, like, if Resident Evil 3 took place in a case where Jill was unprepared and wasn't, surviving the aftermath of the outbreak for at least a number of days before attempting her escape, which sets off the story. If this was, she's in an area, she thinks she's taking a break, she doesn't have any of her gear with her, and she's caught unawares, then the outfit would be believable. But at the start of the game, they make it clear that was holed up in her apartment for a number of days after the initial outbreak, and the start of the game is her thinking, okay, this is the day, I need to make my escape, get to the RPD, get to the chopper, and get the hell out of here, and that's how the game starts. And so I'm with you. Like, narratively, it doesn't make sense for someone who is actively preparing and planning an escape.
Not only that, but with the level of training that she has. Like, she's a cop. Why is she
And plus-
Why is she dressing in a tube top and a really tight skirt to try and get the job done?
Plus, the other factor is, given what she observed in the Spencer mansion, she knows that, hey, this
Uh-huh.
disease is transmitted through bites and scratches. So, I mean, Max Brooks put it best in the Zombie Survival Guide. I mean, yeah, short and tight clothing would be something you'd want to wear if you're trying to maneuver and not get grabbed and pulled, but you're not going to be wanting to show a lot of skin if you know the T-virus is transmitted via biting and scratching.
Exactly. Now, on the screen that I have for our live chat, by the way, welcome live chat. We appreciate you guys coming out. Here is the new imagery, the cover image for Resident Evil 3 Remake. Now, granted, Romney made a point in the fact that she would probably know that, you know, the T-virus is going to be transferred via bites, and so she still is in a tank top, but here's the thing. The tank top still makes sense because you could still justify it as military garb. She's wearing it so that she can run and that there's no issues with it. She's got full-on military gear that is all over her at this given moment, and I can only guess, like, we can't see the bottom part of her, and we have no full model art, but we can guess that she's in jeans because that makes sense.
Isn't there also like a point when the virus is not as like transmittable, like after so long it almost becomes dormant, but there's still like once they're zombies. I don't know how to explain it, but
Sort of.
It's a weird canon that was tried to be explained between 4 through 6, I think.
Well, then I think that also comes from the S.D. Perry novels as well, when she adapted 2 and 3, because there is a point. Slight spoilers for people who haven't played the original. There is a point where Jill does end up being infected, and you then take control of the other character, Carlos Oliveira, who then has to basically go and find a cure at a nearby hospital that managed to synthesize a cure for the T-virus.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason things are a bit confused is because you more or less had two viruses at play here. You had the T-virus, but then you also had the G-virus, which, if we go off the canon of the remake, it's alleged that the G virus was what got on the rats and started the outbreak, which infects zombies in a slightly different way. Hopefully, the remake of 3 will clarify that, because I know that that's something that's also been kind of confusing. Was it the T virus or was it the G virus that got out when Birkin basically injected himself, went on a rampage, and damaged the samples that the Umbrella Commandos were trying to sneak away? Speaking
of, so you already brought up the other character, Carlos Oliveira. I always thought it was Rivera. I don't know why. But he is also featured in this cover art and looks a lot, in my opinion, a lot better than the model in Nemesis. The model in Nemesis is like, I don't know how else to say it other than it looks like it might be a white dude, but also blonde. And just like, okay, well, maybe if you're from Spain, I get it, but it's also very muscly, and I like the fact that now that this is a little bit thinner.
Yeah, I mean, the whole might be a white guy would explain the confusing voice direction in the original release of 3.
Yeah, because he sounds like a surfer bro a lot of the time. He's like, dude,
yeah,
chill.
Where at least in Umbrella Chronicles, they at least had a voice actor who actually could hold an accent more consistently. Didn't help that they made him sound kind of like an off-brand George Lopez.
Yeah.
But definitely look at the design here. Okay, did anyone else here? Am I the only one who thought, as soon as I saw the cover art and saw the new design of Jill, I'm just like, is that Natalie Portman?
You mean for the Jill model? Yeah.
Yeah, for the
kind of, but
she has kind of like a Natalie Portman sort of face, and for all I know, it could just be a similar model that they scanned in, because the RE engine, they scan in actual actors and models.
See, and what's funny is, I'll bring this up on the screen again. There's also this art that you can see of Jill, and I don't know about you guys, I kind of get a Jennifer Lawrence vibe from this angle.
Yeah, maybe they're going for kind of a composite almost, where maybe they found an actor that was kind of in between the two and scanned them in, since we know, at least with how Capcom does it, the actors that they scan in to create the models aren't the same actors doing the mocap.
No, they're not.
Yeah, because that was the same case we got with Devil May Cry 5.
The only thing I'm a little worried about, but I'm not... Here's the thing. I'm kind of nitpicking with this, but I'm not entirely worried about it, because you could still justify that this is a similar model to the 1 remake. Because it still looks about the same build that Jill has in that game. And so at that point, it's believable that this would be Jill, but this would be Jill after having to deal with the nightmares and then finding out about the outbreak in the city and wanting to get the hell out. So I really do like it. But before we go any further, because we have to talk about the titular name of this game, what do you guys think of the Jill and Carlos redesigns? Alex, I know you haven't seen Carlos yet, but what do you think of the new art? Well, one of you guys.
Well, you asked Alex first.
Oh,
I
yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
if you wanted.
No, by all means.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
sorry, because my stream's still not the best here. Yeah, I guess it looks fine, but I don't have much to compare it to because I've not really played or seen much of the original Resident Evil 3, so I guess just it looks fine from a design standpoint.
All right, and Romney?
Well, I definitely do like what they've done with Carlos, where he does look a lot more like a mercenary. I mean, I have a particular fondness because the character is canonically Venezuelan, which, as many people who've listened to the show know, I'm half Venezuelan, so it's like, hey, representation. But I can see kind of what they're going for. They're going for kind of a Che Guevara, kind of dirty mercenary look, but when you consider that Carlos is meant to be a mercenary hired by Umbrella, who isn't really part of the main command unit that Hunk was a part of, but it's just like, oh, they're the cleanup crew, but they think they're the good guys. He's just there because they pay him to be there. It works. It communicates the ideas. Okay, this is someone who's seen a lot of action, doesn't really care much about his appearance. He's just pretty much there because they pay him to be there. It works.
All right. And this one I think actually does need a comparison. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, or at least in this art. There's a reason that this is called Nemesis, because, well, we have a main featured villain. So, for Alex's sake, I'm going to show basically a HD revision of the Nemesis model to give you kind of a feel of what this character's supposed to look like. So here it is. Basically, this is from, I believe it's from Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, but they tried to stay as faithful to the Nemesis model as they could. It
looks more like Operation Raccoon City, actually. That screenshot looks like it's from Operation Raccoon City.
It could be. I might be wrong about that. And then I'll also show you this concept art of how Nemesis is supposed to look. So this is kind of the way the model is supposed to look for you, Alex. Now let's show you the cover art once again, and we don't get a whole lot with Nemesis because he's still being kind of hidden, but just given the face, where are we standing with it?
Honestly, to me, it looks like Nemesis. It's hard to really say from this angle. And the art for the Z edition gives kind of a slightly better look.
Yeah,
but...
I'll bring that up in a minute. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so it looks like, at least with what we're seeing so far, Capcom is probably going to play it really close to the vest because they know that, hey, Nemesis is a major mainstay. It looks like they changed the mouth a little bit where it's not just a sectioned off section of teeth. It looks more like the flesh is kind of pulled above, but that the chin is just still, I don't know, looks like they kind of rearranged it a little bit to kind of change the way the face has mutated. But so far it's hard to tell without seeing the full thing.
Yeah. Given the artwork that you've seen, Alex, what do you think about the old and the new Nemesis? Uh-oh. Well, unfortunately, we lost him, so I'll go ahead and go into my opinion really quick until he gets back. But, okay, here's kind of my issue with it. If there was one issue that I had with this cover art, it is Nemesis. And the main reason is, I'm not saying that Nemesis looks bad, but Nemesis works because of the whole package, not necessarily just the face. Like, the face is one aspect, and like I showed with this concept art, you know, this is what makes Nemesis terrifying. This is what makes Nemesis very intimidating, is he's a Hulk, a monster that is out to kill Jill as hard as he possibly can, with bullets, with anything he can get his hands on. And to me, the whole package needs to define that. And I'm not saying the face looks bad. I do like, I kind of want to agree with you, Romney. I think that the face is a little stretched, which might make for an interesting take on how he was created, because we know that he's not your run-of-the-mill tyrant.
Nope.
But one of the things that I kind of liked about the original Nemesis model is that I know a lot of people don't like those hoses that are kind of going through his shoulder area. I liked them because it gave a sense of artificial to the organic that is Nemesis. And so the fact that we have a tube sticking straight out is a little bit disappointing, but I'm not going to judge this and say it's horrible based on just the face. I need to see the whole damn package before then, because that's the thing that gave me nightmares, all right? That thing stomping around saying stars, that was what gave me nightmares, not the face. The face is like, oh, I've seen this on a dozen zombies. Alex, you got cut off, so why don't you go ahead and give your viewpoint on Nemesis?
Well, again, I don't have much to compare to because I don't know much about Resident Evil 3. I probably will find out soon enough. But,
yes, actually.
Again, design-wise, it looks very much like the past Tyrant variants, but we'll see what it's like actually in game.
Mm-hmm. And actually, one of the things that has been kind of hinted at, and I wish this is true, because this would be a lot cooler than what's been done in the past with Nemesis. In the original game, Nemesis drops in. There's actually a rumor going around that maybe there's a possibility Jill will discover Nemesis in the remake and accidentally turn him on. That might be really cool if they execute it properly.
Yeah, and that's the operative thing of proper execution, especially when you consider the initial framework and the initial story, and when Nemesis is first revealed early on in the game, when he kills Brad Vickers, her activating Nemesis on accident doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you consider that Nemesis is literally dropped into Raccoon City to basically kill any witnesses of the Spencer Mansion incident.
Yeah.
And that's why he's there. So, I mean, I can see maybe kind of a twist on that where it's like, oh, maybe that she thinks she activated it because she doesn't know what it is, but that it could be that it's dropped in an area that she's just like, oh, what was this that was just dropped in? And maybe having kind of an alien sort of vibe with the reveal of Nemesis. But again, like you said, it's going to come down to how they execute it properly. I don't see them deviating too much from how they set things up. I mean, I can even see them making a connection of, oh, here's the tube that dropped Mr. X, here's the tube that dropped Nemesis. That way people can kind of think, okay, that's how they got into the city.
See, that's kind of what I want to stop you right there, is that this is how it would work. I'm not saying you find an abandoned laboratory or anything like that, but one of the things that would connect with later games is Tyrant models are always dropped in these capsules, right? And so at that point, wouldn't it be interesting if the capsule dropped, and let's just say Jill and Brad kind of team up for a little bit, and they come across Nemesis's pod, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what could this possibly be?" And then it activates like right in front of them, and let's just say because it's Brad. Brad is like leaning over, and all of a sudden, bam! Like he grabs him, and then we get the death of Brad Vickers in a whole new way. That would be really cool. And that's what I kind of hope is going to happen there, because that actually would get people to pee their pants.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of ways to go about it, because especially with the way the Tyrants are dropped in, according to the canon, at least what a lot of people have narrowed down, is that there were a total of 6 Tyrants deployed to Raccoon City.
Yep.
You have Mr. X, you had Nemesis, then you had the other Tyrant that was shown in the Outbreak series, plus 3 others that were unaccounted for because of, I don't know which weapon. I think it's not an N2 mine. I know that they changed it from a nuke to a different type of weapon because the people who worked on the original Resident Evil 2 were Evangelion fans and wanted to use a weapon from Evangelion.
Yeah.
But it was one of those cases where there were a total of 6. We know about 3. The other 3 were blown to bits.
Mm-hmm. Supposedly. It would actually be really cool if maybe we come across different variations, or maybe even like the corpses of those Tyrants. But that's up to them. Like they have to do it. Then the last thing that I want to go over with this, because I mean we could easily just laugh at the fact that this is done goofed. In fact, one of the things I love about it is that so the Game Awards are right around the corner, and a lot of people are guessing that it's because of the goof here. When that trailer was, the trailer that's going there was supposed to come out, then you would see this up on the PSN and you'd be able to pre-order it. And I know that Jeff Keighley has already come out and said, we don't have anything Resident Evil 3 for the Game Awards. Please, jump on your head if you believe him. or please stand on your head if you believe him, because it's Jeff frickin' Keighley. Do you really think he'd tell you what he has and what he doesn't?
Well, I mean, I'd stand on my head, but that would damage the cargo he's expecting.
That is, in fact, true. And also, Kojima-san would not be very happy with you about that.
Nope.
So, with that being said, let's get into the last little bit of this, and this is another one that I've seen a lot debated, is currently this game has a 2020 release date. And that's where the conflict kind of comes in for a lot of people, is that obviously it's 2020, which means anywhere from January 1st to December 31st it could come out. But a lot of people are saying, given the level of work that went into the 2 remake, it can't be releasing in 2020, and if it is going to be releasing in 2020, it's going to be late 2020. I know that some people have speculated it's going to be like on the anniversary of the Resident Evil 2 remake. I do not think that that's the case.
No, because the Resident Evil 2 remake came out in January, didn't it?
Yeah, January 29th. So at that point, that's a little close. But do we think that this could come out in 2020? I tend to believe if it was a later month in 2020, maybe it's possible.
I can see Capcom trying to push this out around October because, again, you have Halloween. You have a lot of these other, like, it would be a prime month because, 1, you would get it out ahead of the holidays, and 2, if you release it around Halloween, naturally everyone's like, oh, hey, there's this nice spooky game for us to play on Halloween.
Exactly.
That way we can never sleep again while we wait for trick-or-treaters.
It's Nemesis. We weren't going to sleep, period.
No.
But yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Like October, November, like right around that time, I could see it coming out. Anytime earlier than that, no, I don't think it's possible. But even then, like, I definitely could see like it getting bumped back to 2021.
Yeah,
just in case they have any issues with it.
I could also see, depending on how far along they are, and especially if they're going to be using the same engine and reusing assets from the Resident Evil 2 remake. Earliest I would speculate, depending on if they are really far along, earliest I could see would maybe be March, because that was another month that they released games like 5, and I think 5 was released in March of the year it came out. And so if they're that far enough along, I'd say soonest we could possibly see it would be March, but definitely October, November would probably be more likely.
Yeah, that's more likely, and at that point, then they can join in at E3 and be able to give you a good trailer for it, but also advertise Resident Evil Resistance, which is probably also going to come out fairly close to this. That is the simulator that we were covering earlier, where you could, like, one person plays the villain and everybody else plays the party trying to get out of the Umbrella facility. I could see them also coming out fairly close to each other, but Resistance being the one that's later.
Yeah, how long until the people get a hold of the PC version and just mod it to be Scooby-Doo?
Or everybody to be naked.
Well, I mean, that is a given. But
or Mr. X to be wearing a Speedo.
Again, that's a given because, I mean, those mods didn't take... people didn't waste any time making those. Whereas if they were making a Scooby-Doo mod of Resident Evil Resistance, that would at least take time and effort.
I do expect Thomas the Tank Engine to be modded in first, though.
Yeah, we'll see.
Alex, what about you? Do you think this is likely a 2020 release?
Yeah, I think it is, because really, they're probably going to build a lot of it off of the remake of Resident Evil 2, so a lot of the heavy lifting has been done. So, when in 2020? Yeah, probably like I'm going to say mid-2020, like summer at the earliest, to more likely a fall. Yeah, I think it's pretty safe that this is a likely 2020 window game, just because, again, so much of it can just be built from RE2, and so it's not like kind of the first remake of Resident Evil 2, where they're having to make a whole new game of a whole new console, of a whole new generation here. I mean, eventually they'll probably consider PS5, but for now, I think it is very likely that we could see this come out within the next year.
Probably, yeah. And actually, I kind of agree with Romney. I think October would be ideal to release this. I think, in fact, I need to double check this, but I think the original Nemesis came out around October. So let me double check that.
To the internet.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I think it came out around October because I remember seeing the commercials for it around Halloween time. No, September 2nd, September 22nd. So close, but but it was a month off. So there you go. I think that's entirely possible. But let's go ahead and move on into the next story that we have, because we have two top stories tonight. And this one, well, it's a little bit of an update in the Vic situation, but not really. Just simply because, if people don't realize this, Vic no longer works with Funimation, which means he is no longer the official voice actor for Broly. And that Dragon Ball FighterZ was going to be releasing Broly from Dragon Ball Super in the second season of content updates. Well, Broly is out, and we now officially can confirm that Broly is being voiced by Johnny Young Bosch, aka former Black Power Ranger, also Ichigo Kurosaki, Vash the Stampede. He's got lots of roles under his belt, but Johnny Young Bosch is going to be taking over for Broly. And right now, like, I'm not even kidding. I went to go just kind of get a consensus on social media outlets to see how people feel about it. It is straight down the line 50-50 from what I could analyze.
Yeah, as soon as I heard this news, I'm just like, Johnny Young Bosch is always the one they go to whenever they need to replace a voice actor. Because I know when they were doing the Power Rangers game for the 3DS for Megaforce, they couldn't get any of the actors, so who did they call? Johnny Young Bosch. It's like, he's like, in all the other instances where anime and game voices were replaced, he's always the one they call.
He really is, and there's a reason for that, because Johnny is very reliable. I will admit, when I first saw it, I was a little concerned, because Johnny in anime has kind of a stereotypical character he plays. You know, Ichigo Kurosaki, Vash the Stampede are perfect examples of this. He's the skinny dude that has lots of power. And Broly is, even though this model is technically smaller than the movie version, he's still a roided out freak. Like, he is jacked to the hilt. And so it was kind of weird hearing Johnny Young Bosch coming out of it. But what sold me is, I don't know if you saw this video or not, and if not, I'll link it to you, Romney. Somebody caught some of the dialogue that he can say in Dragon Ball FighterZ and was able to record it. And that's what sold me, because in some weird way, he's kind of trying to do what Vic was going for and trying to take the next step from there. And so that's kind of what sold me there, in the fact that he can do this role, because I was really worried that he could not sound big and beefy like Broly needs to sound. What about you, Romney? Where are you at with him playing Broly?
Well, when you consider that this is the super version of Broly, and considering that they changed the way Broly sounded and actually brought him up a few octaves, back when Vic was doing the voice, they changed the voice so that he went up a few octaves so that it was closer to Vic Mignogna's normal voice. Since it's the super version, Johnny Young Bosch pulling it off is a bit more in the realm of possibility, because, well, they already established, okay, this version of Broly, the canon version of Broly, has a higher voice than the version we got in the first Broly movies. And so there it's a case of, okay, it's not as far-fetched. I mean, Johnny would probably have to change his voice a little bit to try to match what Vic did, but at least there it's not like he's having to drop down into a full-on bass to get that real guttural scream. It's a case where, okay, the changes were made, so the groundwork to have someone like Johnny voice it has already been done, so it probably won't be as jarring. I mean, if it was Johnny trying to dub the movie version of Broly, then
that
it
would be
weird,
really odd.
Yeah, because that version of Broly, if you listen to the voice takes in Budokai and Budokai Tenkaichi, that one is where it is a very low and guttural sort of take on it, which is why Vic had to stop doing it and why they had to change it, because it was wrecking his vocal cords. So, and when you consider the character of Broly, it's not a completely complex character. I mean, he basically is a child with a mass. He's basically almost like a cannon with the mind of a toddler at this point, but not like a mischievous toddler like Goku, but very much like the best comparison I can think of is that kind of like Lenny from Of Mice and Men, where he's a bit of a man-child because he just hasn't experienced enough of the universe to know how the world works. All he knows is fighting, but at his core, doesn't really like to fight. He's more kind of like a pit bull, basically, where he knows how to fight, he knows he can do damage, but that's just not what he really wants to do. That's an easy character for someone like Johnny Young Bosch to really tap into, because he's played characters like that before with Vash the Stampede.
Yeah, and on top of that, like like I said, if you listen to the dialogue, and I might have to send you the audio for it, but he does sound pretty spot on with Vic. Like he sounds like he's going in the exact same direction as Vic did. So at that point, he sounds almost spot on with it. There is definitely a difference in their voices, and you could tell that. But the other thing that's interesting about it is that, you know, we're talking about a character that has had a movie up until this point, but now is canon with, as far as Akira Toriyama is concerned, and we're highly guessing that whenever Super returns, we're probably going to get some level of development with the Broly character in that Super series. At the very least, we're going to get a Broly arc. So at that point, you know, there will be more to work with. But I don't know about you, Romney. Like, I heard this, and, I mean, part of me still wanted to see Vic come back and be able to play Broly. I know that it was entirely impossible for that to happen, but, like, some part of me was hoping that Toei was going to come out of the shadows and say, "We therefore decree a mandate, Vic Mignogna must be Broly," or something like that to get him back into the role. Were you disappointed at all with it?
A Japanese company sticking their neck out
I know.
for someone admired in controversy. I mean, come on.
But part of me
Toei
hoped like he would get the role back.
If it was anyone, it would have to have been Funimation, not Toei. If anything, Toei would be very much the one saying, "Hey, this is embroiled in controversy. We don't want any part of this." Either he yanking the license. So, I mean, I understand that there are people very much who are fans of Vic Mignogna and wanted him to voice the role, but from a business standpoint, it was inevitable. I mean, let's face it. I mean, given that in the wake of the lawsuits and everything, even if they offered, I doubt Vic would come back to Funimation after everything that has happened.
Yeah, and that might be for the best for him, just considering the treatment that he's gotten since then. I am also happy to say, because this is a question I've been seeing a lot online, Johnny Young Bosch did have a brief conversation with Vic about being Broly. And he did say that in the conversation, and this is one of his Twitter statements, while Vic did sound disappointed, he did actually give his blessing to Johnny to do this role. And for that, like, that kind of resolved it for me. Because if Vic has no problem with Johnny playing this character, then that kind of works out. Like, at that point, it kind of feels like, okay, Vic is at least getting somebody he trusts to be able to take on this role. And from what I understand, at cons, they're very good friends.
And just from what I've heard in general, I've heard just Johnny in general is just an overall nice guy. Yeah. So it's kind of a case where he probably has just built a good rapport. Well, as any voice actor would with people you frequently work with, he built that rapport and naturally is respected. And so it's a case of, okay, at least it's someone that he knows is talented. It's not like, I can see from Vic's perspective, it's like, okay, at least it's an actor I've worked with, an actor I can trust. They didn't give the role to some rando.
I also do think that it's not just because of him as a voice actor. I think experience from shows like Power Rangers also plays into this for Johnny. He knows not to burn bridges. He knows to be able to be nice and work with everybody. I mean, he's still friends with a few people over at Funimation. So at that point, like, he's still doing that, and he's just playing the nice guy all around. And overall, as an actor, that's kind of what you want to do anyway. Like, making enemies doesn't help in that regard unless, I mean, you have no other course. Like, if there's just that one director who doesn't like what you think about, you know, his favorite baseball team, you're never going to overcome that. But Johnny always tries to get along with everybody he works with.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why they were able to get him back for Once a Ranger, even though he had to pay for the ticket to New Zealand himself.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of, again, all about that reciprocity that the entertainment industry kind of subsists on.
Exactly. And so, unfortunately, we wish it could end there. But I'm not even kidding. I actually saw this broke on Twitter 6 hours after people had found out that it was Johnny that was playing him. Immediately, we got tweets from a Mr. Doorknob saying, and I quote, heard some sketchy things about JYB himself. Not sure how I feel about this. He later goes on, or this person goes on to elaborate. One of the female hosts who worked with him on the old anime TV podcast / web show he hosted complained how he would make her wear short skirts / revealing outfits to bring in views, even though she didn't want to. So basically, if you guys aren't getting the hint of what was happening, 6 hours after he was announced as Broly, he was getting Me Too'd. He was getting frickin' Me Too'd. And by the way, this would be twice this year that he's been involved in conflicts such as this, because he was also involved alongside Ruben Langdon when Devil May Cry 5 came out. So, like, this guy's had this happen not once this year, but twice. But I actually kind of like how he took it. I actually think he's kind of personified Broly in this regard, because this is Johnny Young Bosch's response. Total BS. I was cast as a host and had nothing to do with wardrobe for others. Just ask those in charge of the show over at Bang Zoom. This is a complete lie and the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He later goes on to say, in fact, we could ask any female that was on the show, but I imagine whoever you're talking about doesn't exist, so what other story do you have? Oh, I got one, but it's about your mother, so, could be a rumor. It doesn't stop there! The next one, the only one I'm harassing is you, and he's talking specifically to the Mr. Doorknob, because I'm calling you out. Go to IMDb and look up every female from anime TV. Tell me who would have said this. Go ahead, Doorknob. Let's hear it. You can't, can you? Just BAM! Shots fired.
Well, not just that. After the string of tweets went out, the account mysteriously disappeared.
Exactly. Funniest thing about that. So, and here's the other part that I kind of want to bring up with this, is I'm very proud of how Johnny did this, so much so that it actually made me go back to how Vic handled this situation. Let me just bring you guys to my frame of thought here. When Vic was accused, he went silent. He went radio silent on Twitter. I think he made a few JoJo related announcements or things like that, like he was flying to LA, but he was not addressing this at all. And then eventually he just went radio silent on all social media, and then eventually put out that PR statement, basically saying, I didn't know that I offended so much people. I'm truly sorry for that, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people kind of took that statement, even though anybody who knows and reads PR knows it's PR. But I know that a few people took it as him implying his own guilt. I can't help but say that I think Johnny had the better approach here.
Well, I mean, it kind of also speaks to a clear difference. I mean, with Vic, it's a case where he kind of admits, okay, maybe there was stuff I did, and it very much was PR, whereas here it's more of a case of that Johnny was just like, hey, yeah, this is BS. I know it's BS. I know you're lying. It very much is the case of the difference between an innocent person accused of something they didn't do versus someone who is actually arguably guilty, and you see the two responses here. It very much speaks to kind of a level of competence here, where Johnny is just like, hey, I know this is BS. Tell me who would have said this. Come on, let's
like
go.
Instantly asking for proof. Prove to me this was said. And then I'll respond accordingly to it. Until then, I'm calling bullcrap. I don't think you have anything.
And they didn't. Because if they had something, they wouldn't have deleted the tweet or their account.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. But, I mean, I can't help but give a little bit of praise here to Johnny Young Bosch. I think he handled it far better than Vic did. And here's the thing. I say that knowing what Vic went through during that whole process. All right? The way that I understand it, he was at his lowest of lows at that given moment. He had to go and get antidepressants, everything like that. And he was just trying to avoid social media as much as he could because it was destroying him. Different people will react to different situations in a different way. And Johnny, I'm pretty sure, has had to deal with something like this in his career many times. And so at that point, I can't help but look at this and go, he's got a little bit of scar tissue with this, and he's calling them out immediately to just put a nip in the bud on this right here, right now.
Yeah, plus the other key difference to consider is that with this accusation, you had the word of one Twitter account that wasn't a publicly identifiable persona, whereas Vic, it could be argued that, okay, you had more people come out of the woodwork to substantiate it, whereas here, you just had one person. And like you mentioned, the same thing happened around the release of Devil May Cry 5, where they went after him and Ruben Langdon, but it's very much as a case that there's probably been other incidents like this with Johnny Young Bosch.
I even confirmed later on that Danny Southland, who played Virgil, he also got a little bit of that flack when that happened too. He got collateral damage compared to those two, but it's still like, holy crap, man.
Yeah, but it kind of goes to show that sometimes if you've dealt with this before, you know how to handle it, and it's very much. I guess it just kind of goes like, hey, it pays to be a bit more assertive because, as the old saying goes, where it's like silence is agreement. By saying nothing, it would have made matters worse. Whereas by actually stepping up and saying, hey, where's your proof?
Exactly.
It kind of nipped it in the bud right away, especially aided by the fact that no one else came forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because if other people came forward, you'd have a story here. But here it was the word of one. I'm assuming a man, because the Twitter handle is Mr. Doorknob. So, I mean, I don't know.
Well, and I guess the other theory is that another person by the name of LJ Montello basically just made a dummy account in this Mr. Doorknob and wanted it to hit home with this, because somebody was saying that originally LJ Montello was saying something about Johnny Young Bosch, and then the Mr. Doorknob stuff happened. I can't confirm any of this, but that's the other theory going around.
Yeah, but point being, you had the word of one person, no one else came forward, and Johnny naturally jumped on it right away, saying, "Hey, who is saying this? Like, unless you've got proof, step off." And well, they stepped off.
And I also want to kind of point this out too, because I know that some people are still questioning whether or not to believe or anything like that. Let me just show you guys why I believe him, and not necessarily this Mr. Doorknob. And not just because the Mr. Doorknob mysteriously deleted their account after they made the accusation and they got thoroughly owned by Johnny. Here's why. You guys can see his profile picture right there. Do you see something odd there over by his shoulder? Yeah, that looks like a little girl, doesn't it? He's a dad with a little girl. That's why I don't believe you. Because the bottom line is, as a dad with two little girls myself, you don't think about doing stuff like that. You really don't. Unless you truly are a monster, then that's the case. But Johnny has pretty much proven, no, he's not.
Nope.
Absolutely not. So, Alex, your take on this whole thing, because you're not interested in the Broly aspect of this, but what I'm asking you specifically is how Johnny handled the accusations that were being doled out to him shortly after he was announced as Broly.
There is some debate about should you be quiet or should you try to speak out when you're accused of wrongdoing. That said, yeah, it's pretty clear this is a fabrication because, once again, this was an accusation made about working on his short-lived web series, anime TV, and you can go on Twitter, and two of his co-panelists, podcasters, whatever you want to call them, both Stephanie Shea and Christina V, both of whom were on that show with him, both came to his defense and both said he's a fine person.
Yep.
I could read. Let's see. Christina V says, shout out to Johnny Bosch, one of the coolest, sweetest, most hardworking actors I know. Congratulations on your new role. And Stephanie Shea says, I agree. You'll be hard-pressed to find another VA with more integrity than Johnny Bosch. And as far as I can tell, there's no complaints from people like Amanda Miller. I think that's it as far as his female co-stars go. Because the others are guys on that.
As far as
two of his female co-stars are fine, and one hasn't really said anything, but also hasn't said anything damning.
Can we make the justification that if he wasn't doing it if he was doing it with one of them, he would be doing it with all of them? Because if he could get away with it once, he could probably get away with it again. And so at that point, already, you have two co-hosts that are saying, no, he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
It's kind of done there. But, I mean, and you're right. There is still some debate on how to approach these things. But I can't help but wonder if Johnny has just kind of understood that quarreling, that quarrel within him. And after dealing with the Devil May Cry 5 stuff, he just decided, you know what? They didn't have proof then. These guys don't have proof now, and just decided to call him on it. Which, in my opinion, because of having to cover all the Vic stuff this year, I actually kind of wonder if this wasn't the better way to go about it, because he immediately dashed any possibility of this and said, here's who you can, like, this is BS, here's who you can talk to, here's where you can research this, go do it, and prove to me that I did it, kind of thing. So I kind of like how Johnny did it as compared to Vic, but I understand why Vic did what he did. Just because I want to throw in even more, because, like, this is there's actually stuff in the article that we're talking about that wasn't in here that I also enjoyed, but also some other people were trying to spread this around just to get people thinking about it, and he actually responded to them as well. Specifically, this guy, Roberto Rilo Bramwell, it might not be the majority, but a few, I stand with Vic, were mad he was the new voice of Broly. Many of Kick Vic was accusing JYB of improper behavior, which is why I accused them of pulling him into this as well. Everyone just needs to chill. Johnny then responded, bruh, what are you doing? LOL, that's how rumors spread. Not many, just one random flyby. And he's right. Like, this was a guy trying to make it sound like, oh, many people are coming out of the woodwork to talk about this, and he clarified it and said, no, it's just one person who's accusing me of anything and hasn't proven anything.
Yeah, that's pretty much the best way to do it. I mean, we no longer live in a time period where you can wait for things to die down anymore. This is the 24-hour news cycle. It's not like the West Wing where it's just like, oh, this crisis is happening. Oh, it happened on the weekend, so we'll have a statement prepared by Monday to get ahead of the newscast. Nope. Doesn't work that way anymore. Like, a show like West Wing would have to be completely revamped if they were to revive it today for precisely that reason.
Well, and if James Gunn taught us anything, it's that nothing stays silent. Nothing stays a secret, because somebody will go and dig through your Twitter to find whatever stupid thing you've done.
There's literally a line from The Dark Knight Rises that summarizes that a 12-year-old with a cell phone can find out everything about you with a few minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So at that point, like, I kind of get both responses, and I think Johnny has just kind of taken the proactive response and done this right, and stood up for himself. And again, I'm not saying anything bad about Vic. I think Vic has done what he's been able to do with it, but I will say this, given what I now know about Johnny and Vic and how they do have actually a good friendship, and he contacted him before then and just said, like, dude, is this okay? I'm okay with this. I don't know about you, Romney. I'm okay with him playing Broly. I think he'll do a good job. I especially like that he's trying to go where Vic was going and taking the next step as kind of a homage, but
it's not. I wouldn't even view it so much as an homage. It's probably that he was directed that way as well, because when you're changing character voices, I mean, as you would probably understand, as someone who has voice acting experience, whenever a TV show or any sort of thing changes voices, you do still try to keep the voices somewhat consistent.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you end up with going from Lorenzo Music playing Venkman to Dave Coulier doing a bad Bill Murray impression playing Venkman.
Yeah, it's why a lot of people, like, say, Jim Cummings and Frank Welker have had jobs as long as they have, is that they can not only be able to provide original stuff, but there's been a lot of times in their career that they've had to adapt with what has been given before.
Yeah, especially having to jump on to replace voices at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, due to death, due to cancer, due to whatever. Like, this is just adaptability.
Yep, and that's a skill in and of itself that voice actors have to rely on. I was recently watching a kind of a webinar hosted by Steve Bloom that talked about that sort of thing, of being able to adapt to whatever is thrown your way, whether it's getting direction from a director or having to mimic an already established voice. I mean, considering the people who voice the Looney Tunes now, if someone were to say, I'm going to voice Porky Pig, and they weren't able to actually, do the and do it and actually match what Mel Blanc did originally, then you don't have Porky Pig.
Yeah, exactly. And I find it funny that Steve Bloom, of all people, was doing this seminar, because he's actually, in my opinion, one of the voices that you couldn't do, because he along with James Earl Jones, they're just deep. And so at that point, I mean, if you can imitate Steve Bloom or James Earl Jones, like to the T, you deserve a medal, my friend, because I can't do it.
Well, to be fair, there are some voices Steve Bloom does that you probably could match. I mean, Starscream, that's a voice that
that would be easier to do. But like, if you were to try and like take up his role of Spike Spiegel, I don't think. Yeah, no.
Yeah, Spike probably not. I mean, Wolverine. I mean, many people have voiced Wolverine. Even Mark Hamill has voiced Wolverine. So not a hard character to nail down. Even Steve Bloom explained that he had to audition every time he's played Wolverine. Starscream, people have done different takes on Starscream. And even some of the other characters, I mean, a good example, someone like Amon from Legend of Korra. That one is another hard voice to match.
Because that is very Steve Bloom in execution. So at that point, like, you could probably get somebody who would sound just as menacing, but Steve Bloom's voice just adds that whole extra flavor to it.
Yeah, I mean, another good example, Tom from Toonami. Like, that's another voice that's not going to be matched easily.
No, not at all. So I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head with this particular story, so let's go ahead and move on. But those are our top stories. And now we're going to be getting into a story that I'm kind of surprised hasn't happened until now. But it's good news in the gaming front because, well, Bethesda might be facing a class action lawsuit over the bungle that was Fallout 76. It's okay, everybody. On the inside, we know that you're screaming yes. Go ahead and scream it, because I'm going to go all Daniel Bryan on your ass. Yes! 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 Because the bottom line is that this needed to happen. Ever since back in December, January, when all the Fallout 76 bonus stuff was happening, I don't know about you, Romney, but I was feeling bad for every single person that was a Fallout fan that bought into this stuff and got screwed.
Yeah, I witnessed the disappointment in real time. Although my younger sister didn't buy into it, it was the classic case. I had to watch someone who was a diehard Bethesda fan as the light slowly left their eyes as they realized that they just went, oh no, Bethesda has gone to the dark side.
Exactly, because the bottom line is that this needed to happen. This was a colossal bungle by Bethesda, and a lot of it is by their own error. All right, it's not like a random bug or anything like that. This was, they literally didn't have enough money to make that duffel bag, and so therefore they gave you an inferior product when they promised you a much better one. And their reason was that they couldn't keep their money in their pocket.
Well, yeah, that's only the tip of the iceberg.
No, I completely agree. I mean, like the whole Nuka-Cola thing. We listed them earlier this year.
Well, I mean, there's even more newer developments that have come this year alone with active players informing Bethesda about exploits and then getting banned for like pointing out the exploits because they had to check that because they used them in order to verify they were there. And yeah, so that and such just broken promises. I mean, Fallout 76 is just one big clusterfuck. I mean, let's face it.
Yep. Just to bring people up to speed, like we couldn't list out every single thing that has happened, but let's just give people kind of the feel for what's happening here. The law firm Migliaccio, I think is how you say that, and Rapid LLP is currently investigating and soliciting clients for a possible class action lawsuit against Bethesda over Fallout 76. And so a couple of the things that they are bringing up is while minor bugs and glitches are expected with the release of most new games, Fallout 76 launched with a 56 gigabyte patch that is proven to be but a starting point for the game's problems. Gamers who have tried to receive a refund because of the game's myriad glitches have been unable to do so since they downloaded the game, leaving them to deal with an unplayable experience until patches bring it back to a playable state. So you have that. You have the pre-order debacles. And then, like Romney has stated, this is something that's been happening throughout the year, is that you will have devoted players of Fallout 76 who are still going to give the game a chance, and modders who want to be able to work with Bethesda to make a mod for this game, have been banned outright. Because they dare to say, like, there's this game-breaking glitch that you kind of need to fix. Or there's something wrong with this particular quest line. Could you maybe look into fixing that? banned permanently. Like they're because here's the thing, this is supposed to work on a Bethesda launcher, right? Banned permanently, all of it. So they don't even get access to Fallout 76. If they're an Elder Scrolls fan, well, you're boned. Unless you have it on PS3. That's why in a lot of cases, guys, this class action lawsuit is necessary.
Yep. I mean, it's especially telling considering that Bethesda chose not to release the game on Steam, which has a refund policy that anyone who is offering a game on Steam has to abide by and honor.
Yep. They tried to do it. They basically tried to pull an EA and say, no, you have to get it off of the Bethesda service. And then the Bethesda service was probably seedier than EA's Origin. And that's a lot coming from me, because that was a seedy service.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I am so glad that they are going to have to pay for this. Because they are.
I just have to wonder who the worm tongue was that convinced Bethesda that any of this was a good idea. I mean, do we need Gandalf to come in and, cast out the Curse of Saruman? I mean, except at this point, I don't think they even have a Theoden at this point. Theoden's dead. You're just stuck with worm tongue. Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, this is actually one of those things where, because what's his name, Howard, that's been in charge. What was that?
Todd Howard.
Todd Howard. He's been in charge of Fallout and Elder Scrolls for many years. Why hasn't he lost his job? Because the bottom line is that all of this happened while under his watch, and he never made statements about any of it. And yet, at the same time, went out to E3 with a smile on his face and said, "We've got so much coming for these games." No wonder from what I can I never watched the event, but from what I can tell, you got booed when you walked out.
Well, yeah, his event was basically the equivalent of that South Park joke where they have the fake commercial saying, "We're sorry. We're sorry." It was basically a real-life version of that.
Yeah, pretty much, and nobody was buying it. And so that's why in a lot of cases, one of the reactions I've still been surprised to this day is that Todd Howard hasn't stepped down or been fired from his position, because all of this has happened under his watch. I get it. Todd Howard was the guy that brought Elder Scrolls into dominance with Morrowind. Okay? But as the games have been coming out, he's been getting progressively worse over time. I think we can all agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
Worse and worse. Why is he still there? But anyway, back to the lawsuit. Alex, you are not a Bethesda fan, but you, along with us, have followed a lot of the crap that Bethesda fans and buyers of Fallout 76 have had to deal with. What's your take on this class action lawsuit?
I'm kind of skeptical it's going to go anywhere. I don't know. I don't think there's much in the way of a case they can prove here, but I don't know, because I don't know what legal grounds they have to stand on besides some of the obvious pre-order promises that were kind of shoddy. There you might have something, but when it comes to software development, I don't know. How do you litigate something like that? How do you even begin to try and pursue any kind of consumer action?
Well, looking at it, the main sticking point of this specific lawsuit is Bethesda's refusal to provide refunds for those who purchase the game digitally. Yep. That seems to be the main focus that they're attacking, is saying, hey, you delivered an inferior product. These people who bought this game and have tried to return it, you are not honoring these refunds. You're not allowing them to return it. That seems to be what they're going. It's hey, you should at least give these people their money back for what they paid for this game that you're clearly because it clearly did not deliver what it was advertised.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing too, is that I do think that you can prove malice in this regard, and I do also think that you can prove damages, because look, it's not so Alex, it's not just in the game that people had issues. There were literally people that when they download the Bethesda client and they downloaded Fallout 76, to this day they have never been able to log into Fallout 76. Because there was some weird bug in the launcher that would somehow discern that you had not paid for it yet and redirect you to a payment page that would tell you you've already paid. And so you'd get
Right.
stuck in that cycle, and that's why they've never played Fallout 76, is because they got stuck in that cycle, and Bethesda, to this day, still has not done anything about it. Oh, might I also add the bug within the launcher that could brick your PC? Not even kidding. There were complaints about something happening with the Bethesda launcher that would cause a critical shutdown within your computer and would brick your hardware.
Damn.
That one funniest thing, Bethesda fixed that, and they did it quietly. Because they knew there was damages there. That's why in a lot of cases I do think you can prove malice, because they did actually try to fix that one. And I also do think that you can prove damages because there are people who lost PCs on this. Not just $60, not just pre-order bonuses, although I do think those should be put in there. But this is, by far, like, the bugs in Oblivion, even the bugs in Morrowind, nothing compared to the bugs in 76. Nothing compared. This was a shitty-ass broken game from launch. And what's funny is that some people in the beta were telling me it was much more of a game than it was when it released.
Yeah, but especially given that they were hoping that this would basically be the Fallout MMO answer to Elder Scrolls Online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why in a lot of cases I really help. I get Alex's argument is that it's kind of hard to prove all that stuff, and that's why I know that they're soliciting clients. But if they get enough people, which I think they will, honestly, like there's a lot of spurned Bethesda fans that'll join on to this rallying call. If it gets big enough, I don't even think this goes to court. Bethesda will settle because they will have no choice. Otherwise, they will be giving this law firm access to basically everything within the company via discovery.
Yeah, not to mention that it would also just be a massive PR nightmare that no company would want to deal with. Because this isn't the first time a company has been sued. There was a class action lawsuit filed against EA way back when. And so it's a case where even barring the usual, we don't want them to discover anything. It's just more like, hey, this is going to be a PR nightmare that's going to damage our brand. It's going to make our stocks tank as people are going to start selling shares left and right to get away from this. It's very much the kind of thing that a company wants to resolve as quickly and as quietly as possible.
I mean, this is how bad, like, from a business standpoint that this has gotten. Because you're exactly right. They have games that they have to advertise. They have an Elder Scrolls mobile game that's coming out very soon that will be hit by this. They have a sci-fi version of the Elder Scrolls in Starfield that will be hit by this.
They've also got Doom Eternal that's going to be hit by this as well.
I'm getting that one, actually. You've got Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6 will be handled by this, and these are just the mainstream Bethesda games. Now let's bring in all of their sub-companies that are working on other games like, say, Doom Eternal, who are all quaking in their boots right now that Doom Eternal will suck in sales because of the nuclear radiation that Bethesda's emanating.
Was that pun intentional? Quaking?
Indeed. Quaking in their damn boots. Doom will come for them.
I mean, considering what happened when they ported the Doom games to Switch and the Bethesda net login that you were required to sign into until they told you, oh, yeah, you can back out of it. Given that was already something they had to deal with, yeah, PR-wise, they're not in a good place right now.
They really aren't. And any other PR disaster is going to sink the ship. And that's why in a lot of cases I can wholeheartedly agree with id Software, with the other companies that are part of the umbrella that are like rats leaving a sinking ship. They don't want to be associated with these guys anymore. They don't care about the money anymore. They want out. And they should. Because the bottom line is that, yeah, Bethesda's radioactive right now. The best thing that they could possibly do, and I don't even think it would do that much now, is to say, we have heard you guys. And we are going to fundamentally change how we get these games out. And it would be on deaf ears, because nobody would hear it at this point.
Yeah, of course, the day a game company actually admits wrongdoing to this degree, I mean, we'd be seeing pigs flying in, like, not just flying in general, they'd be flying in, like, synchronized, like, Blue Angels patterns of flight for that sort of thing to happen.
Yeah, I mean, console makers will do it because I have seen Microsoft be penitent after the one debacle when you couldn't trade games and all that stuff. They've been penitent, and I know that Sony has been penitent when they've made major mistakes, and some Japanese companies will do it too. But you're right, American developers. I mean,
Yeah, because that's
BioWare still hasn't apologized for all the crap that has happened with Anthem, and so yeah. I know that they basically cloistered in and said, we're going to make this game-fixing patch that'll make Anthem playable. A little too late there, BioWare.
Well, yeah, but you've said it right there. That's the main difference. The console manufacturers have a lot more to lose when they don't play nice with the public, because if you're going to treat your customers like crap, they're going to go to the other company with the other hardware, especially considering that a lot of the same third-party games are also available. And so with console companies, they have more to lose. With game companies, you'd think that they would understand this, but they don't always understand that, hey, maybe don't show contempt for your fan base. But lo and behold.
Exactly. I mean, the other thing that I think is going to be a major win for, like, this is another reason why I think this lawsuit is necessary. We're talking about Bethesda. This is not their first time to the rodeo. They've been aggressive, like, painfully aggressive in their lawsuits. Or how many people don't remember that they tried to sue, I think it was the creator of Minecraft, over the word scroll.
Yep.
That's how aggressive they are in these lawsuits. And so I have no problem saying that if this actually goes to a negotiation phase, I'm going to lord it over Bethesda for years. This is the comeuppance that they've been begging for many years, and I hope it screws them right up their butt.
Yeah, maybe this is why you shouldn't make your dealings with Daedra, Bethesda.
Yeah, I mean, this is how bad it's gotten in my perspective. I have lots of friends who play Elder Scrolls and who play Fallout and have wanted me to go and join them. I've already said, for the record, if I touch a Bethesda game, it's going to be something like Doom, where I know a sub-company of them is working on it, not Bethesda themselves. You won't get me to try out another Elder Scrolls or Fallout right now. You will not get me.
I mean, the closest in my case would be, like, if I do play it, it'll probably be a used copy that I bought at a sale at GameStop, where it's a version of the game that they're not even touching anymore.
Yeah.
But at that point, it's a case of, okay, well, if I'm going to do that, I'll just get the PC version so I can install all the mods that I want.
Exactly. So, final thoughts on this one. So, Alex, do you still have your preservations about a lawsuit actually happening, or have we been able to handle that for you?
I mean, I get where it's going, and I want to see it happen because I do want to see these companies held accountable too, but I'm just kind of skeptical it's going to lead to much, but we'll see.
Yeah.
At the very least, it'll hopefully set a precedent, which is something sorely needed in our courts.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that I will say that will clench it is you need lots of people, lots of soliciting clients in a class action lawsuit. Otherwise, the companies will laugh at you. They won't even go to the negotiation stage.
Yeah, you need it in the thousands at least.
Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. I think, in all honesty, this lawsuit could go into the thousands, because there's lots of people that have lots of complaints with Fallout 76 in particular. Like, I like that they're focusing just on this game and not necessarily all the other stuff, because you won't win with that. But 76 has been such a blunder, you could. Like, there are a lot of people who could come in with various complaints of damages and malice.
Yeah, it reminds me of this scene from an episode of a show that I'm probably the only one on the podcast who actually remembers this show, called Oliver Bean, where there's literally an episode where the main character buys like one of those like X-ray specs thing, finds out it doesn't work. They go to the headquarters of the cell, like, oh yeah, like I sell you this illusion. They try the usual BS spin. And it's like, oh yeah, amaze your friends. And then literally at the end of the episode comes back with this army of children saying like, yeah, I talked to my friends. We're not exactly amazed. This is basically what we're getting right now.
Yeah, no. I've heard the name. I don't think I've ever seen it, though. But
yeah, it did not last long. This was back when I used to watch sitcoms religiously, a period that I'm still trying to undo, but...
It's all right. Like, watch what you want to watch. All right, so let's go ahead and move on into the next story here. I can't even believe that we're reporting on this, but a few of our listeners actually brought this to our attention, and we did say that if we found things positive, we would report them. I can't believe I'm saying this. YouTube did something right. a big thing, by the way, that probably should have happened 5 years ago.
Yeah, but to be fair, the fact that they did this at all is more due to the fact that they got strong-armed by, a much bigger, more terrifying entity.
This is true. So if you guys don't know what we're talking about, YouTube has now put in a new policy that eases up on video game violence. For those who are wondering what the heck that's supposed to mean, let's just say, for example, you were a game reviewer that was trying to show off the latest God of War. You could do that, and you could show footage, but if you showed something incredibly violent, well, I believe it was that your video would either be age-restricted or it would be taken down entirely, wouldn't it?
Not so much taken down, it would either be age-restricted or it would be age-restricted and demonetized. A much better example, because this is something that has happened. Say I decided to cover fighting games, and I decided to put up a video of Mortal Kombat 11. And that's what actually happened with a lot of fighting game YouTubers who covered Mortal Kombat 11, which, a game that is known for its fatalities, is that if you showed the fatalities or anything for Mortal Kombat, the video would be age-gated, and it would be demonetized.
Which would hurt a lot of people. So, like, for example, if you were reporting on the geeky news of the week, but you were doing it in video format, you'd have to show some of that footage if God of War was in the spotlight, or if Mortal Kombat was in the spotlight. You'd have to do it, and therefore you know that you're walking into an age gate and a demonetization. And so at that point, like, this was a major problem for a lot of news-related YouTube channels, review-related YouTube channels, and gaming channels in general. This was a horrible thing that was put in place. But they have now said in a blog posted December 2nd that scripted or simulated violent content found in video games will be treated the same as other types of scripted content. So at that point, you're not responsible for it. We're not going to demonetize you. I think they still reserve the right to age restrict you, but they're not going to demonetize you for something that is out of your control.
Yep.
Especially if you're trying to show off the violent aspects of said violent game. Like with Mortal Kombat, you got to show the fatalities at some point.
I look at this news story and it's like, oh yeah, YouTube did something good. Yeah, the whole reason they're doing this is because they just had to pay a $170 million fine to the FTC, and it's a case of, well, crap, we can't do the family-friendly, kid-friendly YouTube anymore, otherwise the FTC is gonna, beat the crap out of us again. So it's like, hey, you want to cover Mortal Kombat and generate ad revenue? Please make us ad revenue, please. Please.
Which is funny considering the changes that are going to be bouncing in come December 10th. And the fact that everything now has to be, quote, kid-friendly.
Or marked as otherwise.
Or, yeah, as marked as otherwise, which I don't know about you guys. That's kind of what I've decided to do to just handle this whole situation.
Yeah, but even then, it's not a guarantee, because YouTube is just passing the buck and throwing us under the bus, even though it was Google blatantly ignoring a law that was passed in 1998. Mm-hmm. But that's a whole separate discussion. But, yeah, I look at this like, oh, yeah, they've eased up. Yeah, because they can't make money anymore the other way they were doing it, so now they're having to
Google's having to pay through the nose for YouTube's mistakes.
Oh, this wasn't YouTube's mistake. It
wasn't. But they're
going
to blame YouTube for it. That's
what
I'm saying.
They're blame YouTube. That's the thing. They're blaming YouTube. They're blaming us as the user base.
Yeah.
Even though Google's the one that fucked up.
Exactly. And so at that point, that's how they're gonna swing it from here on in. So at that point, I don't know about you guys, but it's great and all that you did it, but it kind of fell on deaf ears, considering that 8 days later you will be putting so many restrictions on channels and imposing so much power on them that some of them I already know are looking to probably just close up shop, because they just don't see any way to be able to do what they love anymore.
Yeah, and people have been preemptively putting disclaimers and stuff on their videos, which only protects you somewhat. If the FTC tries to fine you, you can say, oh, hey, well, I put this disclaimer and made it clear that my videos aren't meant for kids, meaning you can't fine me because I made it clear. But knowing YouTube, they're going to throw us under the bus whether we do it or not, so...
This is a question, we'll get into the rest of this stuff, but I kind of want to ask you guys, because of this whole COPPA thing. So it's still possible on YouTube for... I think the minimum age that you can do to create a channel is still 13 years old. You can still create a channel at 13. Do we actually see, because of these COPPA guidelines, they raise it to 18?
I doubt it. mostly because most federal guidelines, and I know this because at my previous job prior to the one that I had to deal with some FCC guidelines here and there. Across the board, most things only take issue if you're dealing with anyone under the age of 13. 13 is kind of the cap-off age regarding collecting any information about them,
Mhm.
monitoring any data, stuff like that. 13 seems to be the age. So unless you have either the federal government or states across the board say, hey, we're going to raise it up to 18, meaning you can't attract anything to minors anymore, I don't see them raising the age cap in that regard,
Okay.
because that's kind of the sweet spot of, okay, teenagers, that's when they usually are able to, buy things with money they either earn from jobs or from parents with disposable income. And so that's why you still see things like Doritos, Mountain Dew, Axe body spray, stuff that is targeted towards male teenagers, still heavily, heavily advertised towards them. So I don't see YouTube raising the age, not unless there's something that happens either in a state or federal legislation that would force it.
All right, so let's get into this, and you guys give your opinions. What is your take on this new policy that should have probably been put in like 5 years ago, and it's just barely being put in now? I think, Romney, you've kind of hit the nail on the head. They're doing this to cover their ass because they just paid out $170 million.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. What about you, Alex?
Because it's good. It's finally happening at last. Let's hope it becomes more effective, and for the people who were able to kind of weather the demonetization storm, hopefully it'll get them back on track a little bit too.
Hopefully. Like, I really do
I
hope
know for-
that this helps out a lot more people than the December 10th stuff hurts them.
Yeah, I mean, I know for some people it's going to be too little, too late, and
Yeah.
I know regarding a lot of like COPPA stuff, it's going to affect more of the family-oriented channels and like toy channels more. But for those who just kind of either cover the news or cover video games, yeah, this is probably one of the better things to come out, one of the better pieces of news to come out of YouTube in a while.
I could definitely see this affecting channels like, say, Sid Alpha, or anybody who did like weekly news. I can't think of channels right off the bat, but like if you had like a news window up there where you wanted to be able to show game footage, this will affect it. Those will be just fine. But my worry is, this is just too little, too late, because once the COPPA standards start coming in, it's going to be a whole other ball game. At that point, it's not just that you're showing the violent footage; it's whether or not kiddies are seeing it and they shouldn't.
Well,
Yeah, which
I think that's really not the worries about COPPA. Again, COPPA is more about, are you collecting information, and are you potentially like again, this is a very simplified version, but it's like, are you violating this law that says you are not allowed to collect data upon minors? And again, there's really no way the FCC is going to trawl through 10 million bajillion hours of
Yeah, they're
YouTube
never going to
content
be able to do that.
on a daily basis. It's going to take somebody to actually lodge a serious complaint against you, or for something more serious to
Correct me
warrant a
if
flag of investigation.
correct me if I'm wrong, Alex. I think we looked up the number of like daily YouTube uploads. Do you still know that number?
Hold on, I'll look for it right now.
Because it's like in the millions, right?
I know it's like in the millions. I know like someone did the math that the amount of hours of footage uploaded in each day would be basically the equivalent of 80 years if you were to watch it all back to back. It's about 80 years worth of footage that's uploaded to YouTube.
300 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. Almost 5 billion videos are watched on YouTube every single day. YouTube gets over 30 million visitors per day, and an average 8 out of 10 to 8 out of 10 18 to 49-year-olds watch YouTube.
That's just ridiculous. Like, there's no way the feds are gonna watch every single aspect. They'll probably watch the big ones and see if they slip up, but I don't see them hiring on a team just to go watch through cat videos all day.
And plus, like Alex said, the issue with COPPA, the issue isn't the videos, it's the fact of, hey, YouTube, are you collecting and selling and targeting your advertisements towards minors? Which is why YouTube decided to lift this thing, because Now they can't do that anymore. They can't collect data saying, okay, we have kids under the age of 13 that are within this age range that are watching these videos so we can advertise these products. It's because of, nope, you literally can't do that anymore, which literally cut off a major source of revenue for them, and also hit their pocketbook to the tune of $170 million.
Yeah.
And so it's not even a case of, it's about filtering like objectionable content. It's just a case of, no, the FTC, what they care about is, hey, are any of these channels or anybody associated with this company collecting information on minors? That is what the legislation is focused on. It's just YouTube, being YouTube, decided to throw the user base under the bus for the umpteenth time.
Yeah, pretty much. So final thoughts on this one before we move into the next story. It's pretty much cut and dry. This is something that should have been done a while ago, but it wasn't. And now it's being done in light of the fact that YouTube is covering their own butt. To make sure that they are covered so that they don't get a huge fine again. So I don't think we can really add anything other than a lot of the stuff that's been said.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when Google thinks it's above the law.
Yeah.
I mean, they went after Mrs. Fields' cookies. What made you think they weren't going to come after you?
Yeah, I have no problem saying this to you guys, but I like not trying to step over the line or anything like that, but I think 2020 is going to have some harsh revelations for not just YouTube, but I think a lot of social media platforms and some of the stuff they've been doing for years.
Yeah, especially, like, I'll just say this before we have to move on, but especially given the current political climate and what we're hearing with on the debate stage, it is very much going to be a year of reckoning.
It really is. So let's move on into our last story of the evening, which in my personal opinion is a story/discussion, because this is something that, while we do actually have a story on it, it's something that we could actually talk about since we've all seen the movie. So to bring people up to speed, producer John Landau, who actually worked on Alita Battle Angel earlier this year, that released earlier this year, he's been asked for a while now about various things like being able to do a sequel to Alita Battle Angel. And I'm trying to bring up the quotes in the article themselves, but Landau basically has been saying that if you want it, you just got to ask Disney for it, because they're the ones that have the rights to it now. Because I believe that, they were Fox, and then the acquisition happened. So at that point, he's basically saying that if you want it, you've got to go talk to Disney about it, because they have the rights now, and if they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. But we do know for a fact, according to Landau, that James Cameron did plot out 2 additional stories where they could specifically go with the story of Alita Battle Angel. So at that point, we know that there's potentially 2 movies that could be done there, or just one of them, but Disney's the owner now. So at that point, is it likely that they're going to do it? Probably not. So that's why I'm saying this is a little bit of a discussion, because we know that Disney will probably not do this, because I know that while Alita did well, its sales were probably not the numbers that Disney would be optimistic about.
Well, yeah, then there's also another factor to consider, and this is something that happens in Hollywood all the time, is that usually when you have someone new in charge, they don't want anything that's made by their predecessor to be successful. This is what led to movies like Streets of Fire having their releases pulled, or other films basically being all but sabotaged, because if you're going to be the new head of a company, you want to have the success be under your tenure, not under the guy you replaced.
Yep.
And so I can see from Disney's standpoint thinking, we're not going to fund money that we didn't make. We're not going to fund a sequel to a film that we never made any money on. Why would we do that?
Exactly, but this actually does kind of level at least a little bit of discussion. Do we think that the movie needed to have a sequel? Because here's the thing. I know that it's set up for one, but I kind of like it as its own standalone thing. I think I would be okay to be able to go back into that world to see what Cameron plotted out, but I'm kind of content not to, in a weird way.
I would like a sequel. I mean, I have not read the manga, but I'm more than certain there's still more material from the manga they can cover.
No, there
Yeah,
is.
because I think the amount that they covered kind of comprised, I think, like the first 3 major volumes of Alita, but it's hard to tell the size of the volumes we're going off of, because there have been multiple series as well. Because you had Battle Angel Alita, then you had Battle Angel Alita Last Order, then you had Mars Chronicle, and so there's a wealth of material they could pull from. I mean, if we do get any sort of sequel in any capacity, I can see Disney trying to say, like, okay, well, maybe instead of a sequel that's released in theaters, how about as a Disney Plus show? I can see them trying to give it that
Maybe.
spin. But it would depend on whether or not James Cameron would agree to it, since his company is the company that holds the rights to it. Fox was just the distributor.
Yeah, so at that point, like, James is willing, but he'd have to fight with Disney about it, and I just don't see it happening just because...
I mean, it could go one of two ways, given that we are still expected to get Avatar Land in the Disney parks. So they are on speaking terms, and I can see them using that as some sort of a bargaining chip.
Yeah, but the thing that keeps on holding me up on this one is, while the movie has earned like $400 million worldwide, that's not... I mean, unless I'm thinking about it wrong, that's not Endgame money. That's not even good MCU money.
I think that's basically them breaking even more.
Yeah, so at that point, Disney's just going to look at this and go, why? Because it's not profitable. Yeah, it's a popular thing, and you guys like that niche story, but, you know, we tried to bring you out a niche story called Tron, and you guys didn't embrace it. So at that point, why should we put forth the extra money? I would argue that, I mean, I think they did as good a job as they were going to do with Legacy, and it would have been great to have a third movie, but yeah, it didn't do well.
True. Of course, with Tron, that's also because you had a lot of, like, looking at kind of the behind-the-scenes process of it, and I think that was even under the tenure of, I think his name was Rich Ross, or Ross Ritchie, I can never remember the name, but this was under the tenure of a Disney CEO that eventually got fired because of the debacle that was John Carter.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Like logically, I know that Disney won't do this. But it actually does kind of make me wonder, like, you know, given that it was as, granted, you could probably call it, like, niche success in movie earning standards, it is a story that I think could be expanded upon. And I think that the John Landau did a good job with. But I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, honestly, and even the article because the initial article we're pulling from is Anime News Network, but they pulled from Cinema Blend, and even Cinema Blend floats the possibility of Disney Plus being an avenue that, if they decide to continue the Alita franchise, that would likely be where it would go, because there it's not as risky as trying to book a release date and release the film in theaters, whereas, considering the success of The Mandalorian thus far, if they decide to make a less well-known, like if they make something on a smaller scale for Disney Plus and use that as the bargaining chip of, oh, you want to see the continuation? Sign up for Disney Plus.
But at this point, do we see them, like, honoring the movie, or do we see them, like, starting from minute one?
I guess it depends on whether or not they're able to get James Cameron to play ball, because that's going to be the deciding factor, because his company, he's the one who still owns the film rights, but when you get into streaming and television rights, that's where things get kind of tricky, because having the film rights is not the same as having streaming or television rights, unless they're willing to renegotiate with the original rights holders. I believe it's Kodansha that publishes the manga both in the US and Japan, now that Kodansha has a US branch. And so that would be what would decide, is that Disney would then have to go to Kodansha saying, hey, we want to make a series based on this manga that you published, and thus hashing out the details, which could work. There's a lot of titles Kodansha has that I can see Disney making a pull for, but at the same time, considering that they were basically doing nothing with the Ghibli library, I don't see Disney making that kind of effort.
No, not really.
It's Shueisha.
A Shueisha, okay. Oh, that makes it even more complicated, because, well, Shueisha, they're very, very reluctant of letting U.S. companies touch their properties. I mean, case in point, Dragon Ball Evolution. So there's a case of, okay, what assurance do we have that you're not going to completely lock the creator out of the process, like a lot of American companies are prone to do? Yeah. And so that one, I think, Shueisha, knowing that it's Shueisha, I mean, Viz, I'm sure, would be open to it, but Shueisha, given how they tend to control a lot of their properties with an iron fist, Yeah, probably not going to happen.
That just like with just bringing Shueisha into this, that just ended the conversation in my opinion, because you have Disney against it, you're going to have Shueisha against it. So at that point, James Cameron is already working at two negatives here.
Well, yeah,
It's
especially considering
not happening.
And especially considering that we still have the live-action Naruto film that's stuck in development,
Yeah.
and a live-action My Hero Academia film also stuck in development hell, both of which are controlled by Shueisha, at least in terms of the manga. Yeah, I don't see Shueisha being like, oh, we'd rather have our properties with one house to an extent. I mean, yeah, I get that My Hero Academia is with Toho, Dragon Ball and Naruto is with Toei, but you get the point. They probably don't want to pull themselves too thin.
Yeah, so at that point, I mean, it would be great to be able to get expansion on it, because even the OVA that we got way back when went about as far as this movie did. So at that point, like, it would be great to be able to further explore it, but there's too many hurdles to cross, too much red tape to go through.
Yeah, and too much red tape that wouldn't be in Disney's financial interest to try to cut through, because Disney, yeah, they have a lot of money, but even prior to the MCU, even prior to Lucasfilm, they've been notoriously stingy with that money. That's why they do crap like the Disney Vault. So it's a case of, although they probably could pay the money needed to get through the red tape, they probably don't want to, because it's like, well, why do we would invest this money when we already have like two proven commodities that we don't have to invest any extra money into?
So I see an interesting point being brought up in our live chat, is that Legendary Pictures didn't shut out Toho when they did the Godzilla movies, and that's a good idea, or that's a good thing to bring up. But here's the problem: that's one company. They want a screaming majority, and the problem is that the majority is the people who are shutting out the creators, and so Shueisha is not anywhere near negotiations at this point.
Yeah, again, Dragon Ball Evolution burned a lot of bridges with the studios in Japan.
Oh, from what I understand, like Dragon Ball Evolution, I've even heard like Ghost in the Shell kind of burned some bridges with a few with a few companies. Even Speed Racer back in 2008 burned some bridges.
Yeah, but at least not to the extent that Evolution did. Where
Evolution was apocalyptic in a way.
Yeah, it was apocalyptic to the point where they literally made it where Toriyama and his people would have to have paid money in order to consult on the film. That is how ridiculous the contract was. And given that, Dragon Ball is probably the biggest moneymaker Shueisha has control over, I can see why they probably would be very, very reluctant to work with any major American studio.
Yeah. All we can hope is that, time will prove something awesome and beneficial that Shueisha might consider it, but by then James Cameron probably wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah, most we would hope for, if they decide to license out Alita again, if they decide to license it to Cameron and Cameron is on board, then maybe. But because of the nitty-gritty of negotiating streaming rights versus movie rights, that's what's going to hold it up.
Yeah.
Most we can hope for at this point then, because of who we're dealing with, is maybe Shueisha saying, okay, well, we liked this movie, but we don't want to work with Disney. Let's bring it to a studio here in Japan and see what they can do with it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which
that's something I see them doing, because they will want to try and get Disney out of this equation as much as possible, and so at that point they might as well do it internally.
Yeah, which even then isn't always a guarantee of a good film.
Nope.
Case in point, Attack on Titan.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know that one is Kodansha, not Shueisha, but even the Japanese make mistakes with their live-action adaptations.
They do. All right, final thoughts on this one before we move on into our last little bit for the evening. I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head. As much as we would like to be able to see further exploration, maybe in a Disney Plus series, if they can swing it, there's too much red tape to go through to make it worthwhile. So at that point, I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head. So
yeah, if you want more, read the manga. That's all I can say.
Pretty much. So let's go ahead and move on into... So we actually do have a couple of podcast updates to go over really fast, and that's just kind of the usual holiday updates. So I'm just going to go ahead and update everybody right here and now. Next week, literally Friday the 13th in December, that will be our last podcast for the year. And then we are going to take our holiday break, and we will probably be coming back in mid-January. But in the meantime, you guys are going to get 2 other episodes that are going to be coming out via exclusivity with the RSS feed. So at that point, you are going to get a review for Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. That's going to happen. We're still working out the details of being able to get everybody together, but it is going to happen, and I'm thankful to say that. We are also going to do our usual best and worst of 2019. I'm not sure if that's going to make it to YouTube or not, but it will be on the RSS feed at the very least, so you guys can look forward to that as early in January as we can get it up. But right now, it's looking like mid-January is when the podcast is going to be returning. And right now, as of right now, I think we're pretty much coming back the same day, same time. But if there are any changes, I will obviously let you guys know. So that's really my podcast updates, just to bring you guys up to speed. Next week is the last podcast, then you will get a Rise of Skywalker podcast as well as the best and worst of 2019, but they'll probably be RSS feed exclusive. So at that point, just keep that in mind. We also do have a listener question that was brought up, and I kind of want to address this because this is in relation to some of the other YouTube problems that are happening. And so here is the question. I know a lot of YouTube creators have to crunch their way through games or media to get their review up in a timely fashion. But with so many now saying that they plan to slow down and cover other things than they usually do, how do you guys as creators plan to approach this? So the question that's basically being brought up here is, one of the wonders of Utah, not Utah, geez. Yes, we're all in Utah because our chat's asking that. But one of the wonders of YouTube is that you can be as broad or as narrow as you could possibly be. And so you will actually have channels that specifically focus on the lore of a particular anime or a particular video game. And we've been seeing a lot of those channels basically say, well, we've been covering this nonstop for a long time, and we're looking to do something else because, we want to be able to make this fun again, and we're not having fun doing rumor videos on whether or not Sasuke smelled his butt in episode 65. Stuff like that. Like, they're kind of done doing that, but they want to go do something else, and so they're, in some cases, they're apologizing to the community because that's what they expect of them, but they're also kind of stating, we're burned out on this stuff, we want to be able to do something else. So with that being said, what's our approach to this?
I mean, I guess I'm kind of already ahead of the curve because that's kind of already what I've been doing. That's why I stopped doing the weekly reviews because I was getting burnt out. I was paying for the tickets out of pocket, so I just couldn't afford it anymore. So I look at this and I'm just like, yeah, I mean, in terms of how I'm approaching it, that's kind of already what I'm doing. That's why I do Monster Clash and Martial March and basically experimental stuff, because trying to crank something out every single week is exhausting, and I wasn't putting out quality work because of it. So yeah, that's already where I'm at, people.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of been my deal too, is that I've gone through, like, my life has just been put through the ringer this entire year. And so at that point, I know that there are a lot of stable things that people would like on my channel that haven't been there for a while. And I have every intention to be able to get back to it as soon as I can. But really what I've been doing is handling a lot of burnout, handling a lot of family situations and personal situations, and in turn kind of having to expand my scope. My scope was already pretty much expanded because I didn't want to narrow myself down. If I wanted to cover Star Trek, then I was going to cover Star Trek. But so I already kind of had that there, but there were things like the reviews that were holding me down in the aspect of, like, I was trying to get them out in as timely a fashion as I could, and even then I was a week behind because people were getting review copies and being able to put it up that week. So my plan right now is, yes, I am slowing down. I've really got no other choice. Life demands that I slow down on YouTube, and so at that point I'm already having to plan that accordingly. But the other thing that also kind of adjusts things is what's about to happen. With the December 10th guidelines, I have to worry about how that's going to affect my channel. That might affect how content goes up as well. Like, do I have to slow down even more? Because there's a possibility that really anything could happen. I'm basically giving the responsibility to YouTube to kick me off if I pick my nose wrong. So at that point, that could change everything. But right now, my least worry is, and I know some people are going to get pissed off with me saying this, but schedule. A timely schedule is not what I'm worried about right now. What I'm worried about is giving you as quality a bit of content as I can give you. And in some cases, I may not even be looking to distribute it on YouTube at first. So that's kind of my approach to it. Alex, what say you about this question?
Well, didn't we answer this last week even, or last time we recorded at least?
I don't think so.
But I feel like we talked about it when we were talking about like the problem with journalism. But whatever. Okay. Right. I don't really have an answer for this because I've never had a real schedule or real pace. I've always made videos at my own pace. So pretty much it's going to be business as usual for me.
Yeah, that's the funniest part about this whole thing is that me and Romney are just we're really emulating Alex at this point. We're putting quality to it, and it comes out when it comes out. And when we have time to work on it, roughly.
Pretty much, because the other thing people need to remember, we all have day jobs.
Mm-hmm. And families and obligations outside of YouTube that need to be taken care of. So I get that there are some people on YouTube that want their daily dose of content, but sometimes life just doesn't allow for you to be able to do that. So at that point, all we can hope is that people will be patient, and that they will get a quality product when we actually can get it out there. So. All right, so I think that covers the question there, so let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. Alex the Shadow Blazer, how do people get a hold of you if they have any questions about the stories that we covered tonight, or if they want to give you their opinions on your opinions on various things, or if they just want to see all of your content on YouTube? How do they get a hold of you?
You can find me on YouTube. My channel is Shadow Blizzard 3000, and I do anime content. Again, I'm going to be doing the 12 days of anime. I don't know how many videos I'm going to actually get out because I have a special theme for this year. But yeah, find me on YouTube and check out my content. It's all anime related and some gaming stuff too. And I'm on social media, on Twitter at AlexJShort.
And I'm just going to go ahead and pimp one of his videos because, like, to this day, it still gets advertised to me and recommended to me. And it's simply because of the effort that he put into it, is the .hack timeline explained. Because,
yeah, it's like one of my most popular videos.
Yeah, it really is. And dude, it gets recommended to me all the time. And for good reason, because you did the extra 9 yards to be able to figure all of this stuff out, because that's how dedicated a .hack fan you are.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and pimp that video because, guys, it's just a thing. Stephen Romney, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can always find me under my handle, Studio Ghost Utah. That is my handle both on Facebook and on YouTube. I do upload to both when I actually have something to upload, which, well, I may not be able to upload too much except for my usual year-end vlog, so it'll be a while. But if you also want to see a more personal side of me, see pictures of cats, things that I cook, random tidbits about random Nintendo Switch games, followed by more cats, you can follow me on Instagram at RomneyDoesArt. I swear, one of these days, I will make that username less of a lie. But if you want to reach out to me directly and send me stories, send things that you want my opinion on. Seriously, Adam has 2 kids and has enough on his plate. I mean, let's give the guy a break. I won't bite, not even if you ask me to, because I'm not into that. You can reach out to me on Twitter at Romney Reviews. So, to reiterate, Studio Ghost Utah on YouTube and Facebook, Romney Does Art on Instagram, at Romney Reviews on Twitter. And as for this week's Romney's recommendation, I'm going to recommend a video that was uploaded this week that kind of highlights a frustration that I've had with the Star Wars sequel trilogy. It comes from the YouTube channel known as Accented Cinema, and it basically is simply titled How to Film a Sword Fight. It goes into detail about the importance of like good choreography, how to stage it, how to frame it, something that the sequel trilogy doesn't really get right with its sword fights, or really that nobody's really gotten right with Hollywood's with movie sword fights for years and years and years. And so that's this week's Rodney's recommendation, is how to shoot a sword fight, how to film a good sword fight by Accented Cinema.
All right, and I will also go ahead and plug something for Romney as well, because if we haven't already announced this, to people who regularly go to my channel, you'll know that I've been doing live streams with my wife, and it just so happens that on Sunday, Sunday, December 15th. I'll actually not be having Andrea on. Instead, Stephen Romney will be joining me as we're going to take on a passion that we both share with fighting games. We're going to be joining on, we're planning on playing some fighting games with our, just the two of us, but if we can go online, we'd love to be able to play with you guys. And I think we're also just going to be discussing, what are we expecting for fighting games in the next year, things like that. So I think it's actually going to be a really fun time, and we would love to be able to have you guys join in. And more information on that, but I'm looking forward to it because it's been a while since we've been able to. I think, what was it? Was it Dragon Ball? No, it was Dissidia. The last time we actually did anything like that.
Yeah, because I think we did Dissidia and Fighters within. At least we did it within the same recording session, but the videos were staggered out.
Yeah,
and yeah, it'll definitely be interesting, especially now that I have an arcade stick.
Oh wow, really? Okay, well he's already going to show how much more elite he is compared to me.
Well, marginally, because, again, as we both say, we both like fighting games.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we're good at them.
No. And it's been forever since I played it on an arcade stick, so I don't know what I would do with an arcade stick in front of me at this point. But that'll still be a fun night. If you guys want to be able to follow my content, you're already on my channel. I currently am doing a lot of live streams with my wife, Andrea, where we are playing games like Dark Souls 2. We just barely finished up the Virgil campaign of Devil May Cry 3, so you guys can check that out. I also do Let's Plays of Final Fantasy VIII and Kingdom Hearts Re-Chain of Memories with my wife, so you guys can join us all for that on this channel. If you guys want to be able to support the podcast directly, obviously we've said that we have a live chat. We do a live recording of the podcast on YouTube at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. You guys are more than welcome to join in on the chat. Sometimes I'm able to incorporate you guys into the discussions. Sometimes I'm not, but I really do try to be able to bring you in as much as I possibly can. So there you go. That's where we live stream for it. But if you want to support the podcast directly, you can do so at geekynro.libsyn.com. That is where the RSS feed is hosted. That's where all the episodes are, even though I'm basically uploading around the clock to be able to get everything that wasn't there up and running. So you guys can support us there. If you want to be able to support the podcast via social media, you can do so under the exact same tagline, GeekyNRO, on Facebook and Twitter, where you'll get up to the minute information on stuff we're going to be covering, whether or not there's going to be a podcast that night, or even if we might be asking for a suggestion for you guys of a Geek News movie night or a Geek News game night, one of those things. So you guys can follow us there. And of course, if you guys want to submit feedback or even stories, because we have a couple of listener-suggested stories tonight, you can do so at geekyweek@gmail.com. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us this evening. We thank you guys so much for joining us in the live chat. We thank you guys so much for continuing to listen and lend your support to the podcast. We really do appreciate it. And we will be back next week for the last podcast of Geek News Reviews and Opinions for 2019. And we hope to see you guys there. So for me, for Alex, and for Romney, we'll see you then.